Welcome to another exciting episode of the GameTime Athletics Podcast. Full house today. Brian, Jordan, Paul, and our very special guest. We always aim to inform, to inspire, to entertain, and there's nothing more inspirational than a comeback story, than an underdog story. We've got a true master of it, former Lebanon Valley head coach, former Bucknell head coach, Pat Flannery. Welcome to GameTime Athletics.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate you and Paul and Jordan having me on. I listen to a lot of stuff you do, and it's a real pleasure.
Pleasure's all ours. Pleasure's all ours.
I'm pumped to have him on, and I go back to the 90s when my cousin Mike Toomey and I would go to the Bucknell basketball camps, and my uncle, as we're driving up there, he says, you know, you get to go learn the techniques of basketball from the head coach of Bucknell University. And me and Mike are sitting in the back of the station wagon on our way back up with our mouths open. Coach Flannery has been obviously a role model to me as a 12-year-old. And then as a coach, a mentor, and a leader, he's always a phone call away. You know, I could call him for any type of basketball advice. Inspiration to me to have a personal relationship. He's a family friend of mine. Great, hardworking man, blue-collared guy. His principles and values line up with mine. I'm just ecstatic to be able to sit down and we can dig into that Schuylkill County, Philadelphia, mixed breed, put together. Coach, welcome to the GameTime Athletics Podcast. I'm pumped that you took time out of your day to join us.
Thanks, Jordan. I really appreciate it, and your words mean a lot to me. One thing that you said that just kind of hit me before we get going, that we talk about all these things that are going on in athletics and college and pros and all, and it's wonderful. There's always good things. But you know, the one thing that you just said that I didn't even think about, Jordan, think about those camps that we used to have that they don't really have anymore, where young kids could come and be at your university, and you were allowed your players to work there because you paid them a little bit to be able to be guidance counselors. I just thought about that. I don't know anybody that does those camps anymore that you can nowadays, that kids would come and be able to spend time with your players. And that's too bad, because young kids used to really, we all looked up to that when we could go be on a college campus. Anyway, it just hit me. I hadn't even thought about that, what we lost in that regard.
J.R. Holden was throwing balls off the backboard. We're us little guys from Schuylkill County watching guys throw them off the backboard to each other and slam dunk at that time, the interaction from a D1 perspective to the youth. So, you know, I'm fortunate enough to be able to experience that. Maybe we could bring it back one day, right? Maybe we could bring it back.
J.R. Holden was was my first recruit at Bucknell, and I'll fast forward. I don't even know if Jordan knows the story, but the year I retired, I was down in New Jersey, down in Stone Harbor with my family. I got a phone call from J.R. He had just hit the winning shot for Russia to beat Spain in the Olympics, one of the best all-time overseas. Anyway, he called and said, "Coach, you're going with me." I said, "I'm going where with you?" He said, "You're coming to China." So here is a kid from Schuylkill County, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. J.R. sent me a driver. They picked me up. I went to Beijing with him in the Olympics, and he's representing Russia. So I was with the Russians the whole time, so they didn't understand what I was saying, that's for sure, and I didn't understand what they were saying, and he played fantastic. But why, guys? All because of the relationship, Jordan, you just said. He was a former player. He went on. He's now vice president of Detroit Pistons. And they're the kind of relationships that, again, that I hope Mike and all these guys that are coaching never lose those relationships. But this NIL we'll talk about has changed some of that. But that was real special. But you mentioned JR. I had to throw in that story.
100%. Paul, I'll let you take us to Lebanon Valley.
Yeah, Coach, I watched the video. It seemed an hour and 20 minutes. It seemed like it was about 5 minutes long. But, I mean, I was just caught up with it. It was just so nice to see all the players being brought back. And I was familiar with the story, but I wasn't. So it was a good, I graduated in 88 from high school, 92 from college. So I was just out of college, but I do remember it very well. I remember reading about it in the paper. So I see the year before, I know you guys just made it to the tournament. You lost the first game. At what point did you realize that this team was something special going into that 94 season?
We went down there and took the job down there at Lebanon Valley in 89, and they had 18 years that they hadn't won. And what's ironic about that is they had good kids. They just always got outscored. And we went down there, and cupboard wasn't bare. I had been at Drexel. I was anxious to be a coach. I didn't know where Lebanon Valley was. I tell you all this because this really started. It wasn't a fluke in the sense of all of a sudden we were good for 2 years. We had our first year there. We had a winning season and won the ECAC. What we did do, though, is we ended up recruiting kids from the coal region that had really come from winning programs, because that's obviously what you know. You recruit what you know. I had a great guy with me, Donnie Friday. So Donnie and I hit that hard. Even in the case of Mike Rhoades, you mentioned, we probably saw him 30 times that year. We saw him play track and field. That's the way you recruited. Anyway, as we were building this, we thought, we could be pretty good. And that first year, we beat John Hopkins and we lost to Scranton, who had been a national power. And we lost at Scranton on a couple free throws. And I got to tell you, going back that night from that bus, our kids were mad. And all of a sudden you're saying, we can play with these teams. I always played a great schedule. So we had played some Division IIs. We had beaten some Division III powers. So that summer, guys, not by design, but that summer you're allowed to travel overseas with your team every 4 years. We didn't have the money, so we raised it together. So imagine the bonding that went on with that. Like, we're going to talk about the X and an Owen, but the bonding that went on, raising money, that in between the summer of the one year we went and then the year we won it. We spent together so much time. We worked so hard. And then we went overseas and we had an absolute blast. And I'll tell you, to this day, when I thought we could be really good, is the parents of that team at Lebanon Valley, the Jim Rhoadeses of the world, the Mr. Harpers, the Hofsas, to say, those parents, they were harder on their kids, guys. Imagine what I'm going to say here. They were harder on their kids than I could have ever been. If I ever had anything, somebody was late for something, or they were responsible for cleaning up the locker room, or they were supposed to be at a football game to be the concession stand and raise money. If they were late, I had one place to go, and that was to their parents. That's amazing to me. And so we had a group of kids that, obviously they were very talented, and Mike was the icing on the cake. He was phenomenal. But it was a group that good size. Scotty Stevenson from Pottsville, big, strong center. I mean, I don't know if he scored 5 points in high school. He was exactly what we needed, had a tremendous career for us. So not only were we getting some first-generation kids coming to college and they're doing great, but it was a group of kids that had the background from their family and the fortitude and the work ethic and all that we thought we could be good. How do you ever know you're going to win a national championship? I mean, that wasn't. Our design was to try and win the league, and we knew we had a chance at the league. So anyway, that really something that we built, and I felt so good going into that year. Whatever happened, I felt like we were getting everything we could out of that team.
Talking a little bit of a segue about Mike Rhoades and all the success he's having now, head coach at Penn State. Was there a point where it really clicked for you that this kid has the IQ to do something like that? That this kid it's clicking, that this kid is a coach on the floor?
Well, again, guys, we're a quick podcast here. These stories for an old timer, they go back a long way. Mike Rhoades was probably a 10-year-old kid. He attended my basketball camp at Martz Hall. I was at Drexel University as an assistant at the time. I had a nephew, and my sister used to help me with the camp. My nephew, who was also 9 or 10, got into a fight with Mike at the camp, and they wouldn't stop. So I had to throw one of them out. You know who I threw out? My nephew. And my sister didn't talk to me through the whole rest of the camp, and she didn't do it again. And that's where my relationship with Mike started. But honestly, like all these things, guys, Mike Rhoades' uncles, Davey Holland and Mickey Holland, I go back. Davey Holland's one of my best friends. He played at Holy Cross. I grew up in the playgrounds with him. So I knew the family, and his IQ came because Mike walked around Monoy with a basketball under his hand his entire life. I mean, if he ever missed church, it was because he missed some free throws the night before and he was over in the playground. So you knew what you were getting coming in, the big IQ, but he also worked so hard. He was a left-handed dribbler, a right-handed shooter, which is really hard to guard. And he was really a kid that so unselfish, Brian. Like he could dominate a game with 15 assists, or he could go for 40. But whatever it took to win a game, that was always his mentality, and that was the way he played the game of basketball. He was all about it. And you know what happens with that? The rest of the kids follow you. And he was a leader. The rest of the kids follow him because he was the hardest working guy I had.
we were talking about the days at Lebanon Valley, a Division III school. A lot of people don't realize there's no scholarships. So how hard is it to recruit there without being able to give scholarships out?
Yeah, it's a thing that you got to go after the right kids, Paul, because you want to get the best players. But if you go after the wrong kids and you finish second to Division twos or Division threes, or Division I, that doesn't do you any good. And I think it's really important that the family is locked and loaded. I work a lot now with a lot of kids that are looking at colleges, and I can't tell you how many families have overinflated where the kids are thinking about what they're looking at. Guys, I learned a valuable lesson from my kid years ago. I have a son that ended up playing at Johns Hopkins and had a heck of a career. He's coaching now. He's actually was at Army. Now he's at Bucknell. And guys, this is a true story. I was pushing him for college. I'm not sure he had the foot speed, but Colgate, Bucknell, some people in the Patriot League were looking at him. And one day he came home to me, and this was him, not me, so I don't take any credit for me. He said, Dad, I want to play. I don't want to sit somewhere. And I'm not going to be able to play at Colgate or Bucknell. You did, but I don't have your foot speed. I'm not going to play there. And I'll be darned, he ended up, the Division threes loved him. He went and had a fantastic career, captain, NCAA tournament. And I only say that to your question, Paul, is the family and you have to know what's the right level for the kid. And when the right level comes, then you start to work on the financial aid, and you're going to have to do hardship and work summer jobs and all. But if a kid really wants it bad enough, then what's wrong with that? Get a great education and be successful the rest of their life.
Coach, you said something that is really hitting home here. Brian and I do a lot of broadcasting for high schools, and we do Penn State Schuylkill for Jordan. And you said about having the family on board. And I think in today's day and age, that's where we see a lot of misconception. Everybody thinks their kid's a Division I athlete until they see Division I athlete usually dominates the game. And unfortunately, Brian and I have seen enough basketball and football and baseball. There's not a lot of them around here. They're rare breeds. And, having the family on board to say, hey, I can go play for Pittsburgh or for Seton Hall and sit on the bench, or I can go and play, at Division II or Division III school and get the same education. Because when it's all said and done at the end of the year, at the end of the 4 years, you need that degree unless you're part of that 1% that's going to go on to play at the next level.
You're absolutely right. And that is a small percentage. And then think about the experience that you have while you're playing.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's not easy. I guarantee you, Division III programs, people understand the commitment to kids in Division III. Jordan, well, you guys know, and Jordan will tell you, the commitment to kids in Division III is no different than the kids in Division I. As far as, I'm not saying that they have the same time, they have the same, they certainly don't have the same meal ticket, they certainly don't have the same scholarship, but the commitment to the game, lifting, running, working out, summer, that's all. That you have to be committed to that, and you have to do that not because you're getting something, but because you're giving something and you love the game. And I love Division III, guys. I would have been, I wouldn't still be there, but I'd be at Lebanon Valley. I would have been there a long time because I just believe in it.
Yeah, and I told Jordan when we came to Penn State, I haven't seen Division III basketball. I've mostly seen Division I, Division II. I couldn't believe the athletes he has at Penn State Schuylkill, the hard work, the coaching. And, I mean, Isaac Lane, Player of the Year. There's a kid from junior college.
So that's a prime example of what we were discussing, right? He could have went any D2 school, but here he comes to a D3 school. He's a blinking indicator on pro scouts, overseas radar. Now the kid has an opportunity to acquire a Penn State degree, which is the mecca of it's the Cadillac of degrees. I tell all my recruits that, and to be able to go over and take his degree overseas and play professional basketball for as long as you can. And the air eventually will run out, but you got to have something to fall back on. And not being able to give scholarships is very, very difficult to recruit. They got to believe in you. I mean, that's the beautiful part about my job to recruit. You got to touch the kid's heart. You got to, if he breaks down on the road up 7 minutes away from the school, I got to pick him up, right? And if something happens in his family life, I want to know about it. I want to be able to help with it. And that's really who they remember. So the J.R. Holden calling coach when he's at the beach lets you know, wow, this is more than just basketball. Jordan, and that's beautiful.
Excuse me, Jordan, do you still do home visits at all by any chance?
We don't do home visits. we basically invite them to the school, and I talk to their
Perfect.
parents.
And that's
Yeah.
perfect. You bring the parents. Guys, you realize when I got into this, and they don't do them anymore, you used to do a home visit. You would go into your family, whether I was at Drexel, William and Mary, Bucknell, and you'd go in and you'd sit with the family. And you could really find out a lot about the kid. I've been in places where I walked out because of the way the kid treated his mom. And I realized there was no way I was going to ever change him when I saw that kid or what he said to his sister. And now, maybe if he's 6'10", maybe I take a different look and stay a little bit longer. But there was times where I did leave it because for that reason. Jordan, you do it with kids on campus, and that's the way they do it now. There's no coaches do home visits anymore, which is a shame. It used to be a blast. But, Paul, you mentioned the recruiting, and I would tell you, I go down to Spooky Nook. Jordan, I know you look at kids and all. There's 300 400 kids down there. A good friend of mine runs it, Jimmy Ship, and they're down there with their families, and they're walking around, they parking, they're paying for 3 days there. I think it's great that kids get the opportunity to play the AAU and all, but the part of that that's just heartbreaking is that to that 1% or whoever's down there, they're not Division III players, let alone Division I players. There's a few teams, there's a few kids. I'm glad they play, but I'm throwback. Go play pickup. Go get those kids in the neighborhood and play and have fun and go get a Coke and a sandwich and be with your friends instead of traveling halfway across the country to play in an AAU game that you're getting 10 minutes.
So Lebanon Valley, the roster with Lebanon Valley, the starting five, he went big before he went into this tournament. John Harper, Mike Hofsis, Mike Rhoades, Jason Say, and Scotty Stevenson. That was a pretty big lineup. That's a gritty bunch, that all the pieces that he went and recruited. And obviously, once they knew Mike was coming, you recruited him at the local Burger King in Pottsville. Everybody knows where that's at. And when we watched that documentary, it was interesting how you sat there for an hour and a half. I wonder if you talked about how, I could have threw you out of my basketball camp, but I didn't.
I reminded him.
Did you remind him of that?
Oh, we reminded. No, it was. By that time, I really knew him. I knew him well, and the only way we were going to get him is, he knew he was going to get the ball, but hopefully he knew he was going to come play for a guy that was, was going to be in his corner.
So we talk about the parents being hard on their kids, which you kind of liked because Coach Flannery's all business. You can ask any of those players I just named. He micromanaged every minute of every practice, and the greats will do that. There was a time, I just want to call this out. You had everybody on the baseline. Call out a player's name, they come shoot a free throw. If they miss the free throw, you got to do an up back. The whole team has to run. You fail together. You run. And he called out Steve Zeber to shoot the free throw. Steve hit the free throw, and he said, everybody on the line. And they said, I don't know if you noticed it, Coach, but that shot went in. And Coach Flannery says, too much rim. He's too good of a shooter to hit the rim. So when you talk about a blue-collar mentality and the mind that he had to win a national championship at a D3 level and to upset Kansas on the national stage and up here at the ESPYs, we'll get into that. It comes with your principles and your fundamentals. For him to say too much rim, that guy's on it. I was actually listening to that in the car. I'm driving down 61, listening to this documentary in the car. And when he said too much rim, I pulled over the car and put the AC on full blast. Like, that guy's on a whole nother platform. And I told you that, Coach. But that's the blue-collared mentality that Coach Flannery has. And everybody says, oh, you get lucky. He got lucky doing this. He got lucky. Was that luck? Spending those hours in the gym? Coach, can you just talk about your practices leading up to that run?
Well, again, guys, I think it all starts with, Paul, you can't believe everything you hear with that rim thing. I'm still getting, I might have said we're going to box out 100 times if we don't box out, but I'm not sure about the rim thing.
So they held you to that.
I'll live with it because they tell that story. But when you're doing this, Jordan, and anybody that's successful in anything, you guys know as you're going, when you start to stir the pot and you start to get what you need to be able to build a program and you're building the culture and all. Think about first of all, the people that you're talking about. Steve Zeber, Central Catholic, winner. John Harper, Middletown, winner. Rhoades, Stevenson, Potso was very good at the time. Hofsass at Lower Dauphin, winner. You were looking for kids that were winners coming in. That we were going to work hard. We were going to eat the same things on the road. I think that builds a little bit of a culture that, hey, we're all in this together. So when you look at the 12th kid, like you saw that film, Paul, and Brian, you guys saw the pictures of that team and everything. You saw a group of kids that genuinely really, really like each other and like being around each other. Now, some will say, yeah, they all liked it because Flannery was hard on them, and they could all go and they could go to the dorms and talk about Flannery. We did scouting reports, Jordan, and our scouting reports were such that I thought what the things were really important. We made them write things down like you are when you're a student. Like we gave them sheets of paper that they had to have keys on. They had to turn it in. If you didn't turn that in with your name on that, you didn't play. So there wasn't somebody coming in and saying, I forgot my sheet back in the dorm. That kid, he's running back to the dorm to get his sheet to play. I think when you're consistent with things, I like to think I was decent in the X and an O, and I think every coach feels like they can do some X and O, and I do think it's important. But I think having the assistants, having kids that buy into what you're doing, having a culture of winning that you don't want to leave the court until you get something established, whether it's end of a game preparation or whether it's getting the clock and doing the 30s under 30 or whatever it might be, you end up developing that. And I think over time, talent absolutely is important, but it's also to get that talent in the right direction and have the right attitude about what's really important to, really to win. So we put a heck of a group of guys together, guys. We really did. And as a result, we did some things that, that's the only national championship Lebanon Valley ever had. They had 780 kids, and now they have probably about 1,700. And we had a lot to do with the school and the pride, and everybody was involved in it. Something we didn't mention, and Jordan, this is important to you. You guys obviously know Jordan and Schuylkill, but my president at Lebanon Valley, my vice president, heck, my athletic director was my assistant. So you have everybody going in the same direction and doing things the right way and treating people the right way. I think good things can happen in any industry or anything if you treat people the right way.
You kind of put it on the tee for us there, Coach, about 1994, end of game preparation, Final Four, Wittenberg. What was it? A minute and what left, Paul? A minute and
17 points down with 5 minutes to go, a minute and 34.
Yeah.
You're down by 9. And you guys don't even have Reggie Miller on your team to erase those big deficits at the end.
Well, it's, that's true. That was what happened. That was where we were at. When you're in the moment, did you ever think of it until they tell you can't play anymore? You keep playing. Steve Zieber, he wasn't a starter, but he had always been important to us. He came off the bench. They didn't find him a few times. He was a kid from he could shoot distance. He hit it a couple big threes, but that starts, guys. That started on that trip to overseas. That started in the year before that the kids knew how to compete and they weren't going to quit. So you just keep grinding. Now, yeah, sure, you got to get lucky with a shot. They have to turn one over. You turn them over, but if you don't have quit in you and you keep going, those things happen to everybody at some time in your life. Those things, if you just keep grinding and you keep working at it, and who knows what the outcome is until it's over. But yeah, that was a great example of a tough bunch of kids that could have rolled over, and a lot of teams would have rolled over, but these kids weren't going to roll over.
14, Harper, an NBA three. The ball game. And Rhoades has a double team staring at him. Throws over it to Zieber for three. Woo! That's touching under 10. Rhoades guarded tightly to Fakatagini by Robinson. Nice pass for Jason Tay. Tough shot by Jason. One of his few field goals in this game. In fact,
Coach Rhoades in the huddle, down 14. I think it was the max was 17 points. They said that you guys were down. Mike basically says we're going to come back and we're going to win this game. Right? It took one guy to really hone everybody in and break everybody down to get back on track to be able to do it. Mike told me that Wittenberg was talking so much trash to him the whole game, like you're going home, you're going home, you're going home. And towards the end of the game, Mike Rhoades scored 33 points and had 9 assists in that semifinal game. He's at the free throw line. Mike's telling me this at Palermo's, by the way. So Coach Rhoades is going to come on eventually. And he says he's spinning the ball getting ready to shoot a free throw, and the same guys that were talking trash to him when he was down 17 points, he basically pointed. He said, "You're going home, and you're going home." And he rolled the ball back and whoop, and sent them packing.
Yeah. I mean, he does have a big heart, and he's a player, and I'm sure something like that was said. The kicker to that, guys, is a kid by the name of Croce, who was their best player. Him and Mike are best of friends in the business. Best of friends.
Really?
So that's what happens when, you guys know when you compete with people and you compete hard against them and they compete and they give you your best, you give them, there's a respect. So there was definitely respect. And like I said, to this day, they're good friends.
You talked a lot about a lot of the shared coal region roots and a lot of the people on that team, the families bonding, that overseas trip. How important in your mind as a coach that you're not just trying to win this for yourself, you're trying to win this for the other 11 guys on that team?
Oh boy, I think that's huge. And that the guys that lace it up with you, like if you saw that documentary, did you see all the guys that were back? There were 3 guys back on there that had really played JVs that didn't even dress with us in Buffalo. Did you see any of the players that played and scored 33 or 23 or whatever? There wasn't one player that said, "What are you doing here?" They were there because they practiced with us every single day. We had crazy sneaker deal with something, a Via or something. There was some sneaker. Every one of the kids got a pair of sneakers. We raised the money for it. So we kept everybody involved, and I'll be darned, all of those kids came back and wanted to be part of it. To your point, I think when your leaders are like that and you treat people that way, Mike Rhoades had to do everything that Craig Charnetzka or any of the other guys, did, whether it was manning the concession stand for football or doing the down markers or raising money for the trip. They all did the same thing. The one thing that the guys, the 11 and 12, that I would say to you is they will tell the stories that they would get mad at me because I would get on Rhoades or Harper Hofsass about something in practice, and then they would go at them, and they'd say, "Coach, you get them all riled up," and then they'd come and beat on us. So they used to come in and say, "Coach, could you stop getting those guys riled up like that?"
Hey, how about the fan base Lebanon Valley traveled with? How about your fan base? Every game that you went, it was like the Cameron Crazies, the way they would travel with you guys.
Lynch was a special place. Yeah,
and Lynch is a small gym.
Time.
Small gym. They said 90 degrees in there. That was like your own jungle there, your own sauna bath. And I can't imagine, standing room only, jamming people in there. Just that atmosphere.
Yeah, it was. We got it to the point it was pretty crazy down there, and then I ended up going to a place with another little gym, and I went through an awful lot of jackets between Lynch Gym and Davis Gym at Bucknell. They were both bandboxes, and they were pretty hot, and you could get after people pretty good.
Well, what did Coach I wanted to say here about, you're talking about kids that were special and assumed their role. You have a starter in Sieber from 1993 on the team. He's the starter. You tell him he's the 6th man on that 94 team. How special is it for him to hit that shot, the 3-pointer that put you guys ahead in that game? You talk about that what goes around comes around, and that was just karma there for him, and it said in the documentary, never said a word, assumed his role as the 6th man. I'm sure deep down he wasn't happy, but a team player.
I think the 2 things that happened with it, honestly, Paul, the one thing is be fair, and I would never do that without calling kids in or talking to them and telling them why we're doing something. I think that why is important, that you just don't do things because I'm in charge, this is what we're doing. I thought he gave us unbelievable. I don't think we win anything without him coming in off the bench, because we could also hide him a little bit. That he wasn't on the original. You know how scouting reports your top 5 guys. We could hide him a little bit, and he could come in. But more importantly, without saying that as a coach, more importantly, he was so close with the guys in the team that he would never want to let them down.
Now, you want to talk David versus Goliath. Let's advance to the championship game in 1994. Lebanon Valley. What's the enrollment at Lebanon Valley at that point, Paul? I think you had it.
800 and some.
Was it? Yeah, I thought it was 79, 90, but yeah, 800 sounds right.
And NYU, 49,000, I believe.
Yeah, you're playing 5-on-5, guys.
That's true. That's true. That is the great equalizer. That's a great point, Coach. It's a great equalizer. It's still
part for us that is really cool is Wittenberg, NYU. These had been powers, Division III powers. And when we got up there and even arrived, people were like, where the heck? So you have one of those, where is Lebanon Valley? They hadn't had, I mean, they'd been decent in field hockey, I think, for a little bit, but like, where was Lebanon Valley? But, as I go back to saying, and I'll say the same thing when you talk about Bucknell, guys, the one thing no one's ever going to put on my record that I'm not going to be proud of is we played anybody anywhere. That gets you prepared for everything that you do. And these kids had been in the grind with a lot of good people.
They said before the first game of the tournament, you guys said a prayer. And then you basically said they didn't say another prayer after that, because we're not going to hope and pray that we win the national championship. We're going to prepare and we're going to execute. And that's how we're going to do it. Pack your briefcases. This is a business trip.
I'm a religious guy. I do believe I used to go to church before games and all. What that was all about is when we got there, Lebanon Valley used to pray before every game. And I just didn't understand that. Pray to be healthy or whatever, but you pray and you feel like he's going to help you, like take a charge or he's going to make a jumper or something. I just never understood that. And we got to the point where, we just felt like we could do the things that we want to do by really working hard. Thing I will tell you about the national championship though, guys, and Paul, I don't know, you and I might be a little bit older than these two young guys, but I'll tell you, all right, I'll tell you, you guys all remember Bob Beswar, or some of you remember Bob Beswar? Do you know the name?
No.
Bob Beswar was a two-time national champ at Scranton University. When they won the national championship. And when I got into this and we ended up going to Buffalo for the national championship, I had never been in anything like that, guys, so I didn't know what. And I'm a guy that I'm trying to take all the pressure off the kids. Like I would have been the guy saying, oh, we're so happy, to be up there. I called him and asked him for advice. God love him to this day. He said to me, Flan, when you go to that banquet, if you stand up there on that podium and you start to do that, oh, shucks, this is fun to be here. Boy, what a great trip. Our kids are having a great year. He said, your kids are going to listen to every word you say. They're going to listen to every word, and they're going to start to feel that way. He said, you don't need to go up there and be arrogant, but you need to go up there and make sure that everybody realizes we came here for a reason. We're here, we belong here, and we're going to fight here. I thought it was the greatest piece of advice I had ever gotten, and I went up there with that attitude, and that's what Jordan was alluding to. I went up there with the attitude, not cocky saying we're going to win this, but guys, we belong here, and there's no reason we packed these bags in Annville that we shouldn't come back with a national title.
Since 2011, Innovate Media has transformed everyday spaces into powerful engagement platforms. What started with commercial massage chairs has grown into a multi-concept, multinational network delivering over 2.5 million guest experiences every month. With more than 10,000 assets nationwide, our partners rely on us for industry-leading coverage, data-driven insights, and technology that creates real one-to-one consumer connections. At Innovate Media, quality isn't a tagline, it's the standard behind every experience we deliver. If you're ready to evaluate your property and unlock new revenue, visit Innovate Media and see what smarter engagement can do for you.
Great-grandfather Frank started it, a little store in downtown Pottsville. 4 generations and over 100 years later, Murphy's is still a neighborhood jeweler experience. Sure, with a few more brands, but still defined by a passion for fine jewelry and timepieces. A genuine enthusiasm for people and the patience to get it right. That's how we did it in 1913, and that's how we still do it today. The Murphy Experience.
It's good advice right now for me, because that makes total sense. The psychology, you're young, right? At that point, you're looking to the leader. You're looking to the older gentleman in the room. And if he's calm, cool, and relaxed, like we're just happy to be here, all right, I could take a little bit of a breath. And
yeah.
if he's stern, then I'm up and I'm
Tight.
ready for. Yeah, exactly. Never let off the gas. 2.9 seconds, Bri. National championship game.
And we got to talk about the buzzer beater, the tip in from Jason Say.
Yeah.
And more so than the actual moment, the aftermath. Did you have to do a lot to regulate the team's energy to make sure they were coming into overtime in the right headspace, or did you just kind of let it go knowing your team?
If you look up our record in the times that we've gone, whether it was Bucknell or Lebanon Valley, I think we've lost in about 16, 15 games. We lost one overtime game that I can remember. And I only say that to you guys because I think that's part of preparation. Not that you know you're going to go overtime, but when you do go overtime and you reset, you practice that and you get an idea of what you're getting into. If you have an attitude one way or the other, like you were lucky to get in or that you're going to blow this team out, that's when you really get hurt. And you said about the attitude, our attitude was that ball went in. We tipped it in. We had the right look. We played it out. Ball went in. Now let's get going. And we dusted them in overtime because we had been there and we had prepared for it and we knew what we wanted to do. We always saved a couple sets. We always changed up a little bit about what we were doing, sometimes defensively. And I feel good about that part of the game. But again, it goes back to how do you practice? I mean, I was too old for Jordan to probably see many practices, but I was a big situation guy. We would scrimmage, like even Division I used to have Rutgers and people come in. We would spend a lot of time on situations, up 4, down 3, up 7, down 7. And I think that was a part of our preparation that made us good. And it was just again a philosophy that I had, that I think if you put kids in those positions or put a bad free throw shooter up on the floor and you're down 1, practice how to cross across the free throw line and pin the other guy. I don't think some of that stuff happens by accident.
So Mike's on ball, right? He draws up the play in the huddle. He goes a 4-box set, has Mike on ball. Cross screen for Zeber. He pops up at the elbow because he wants to get his best player the shot. But the ball comes off the rim and it's tipped. There's no video review now, guys, at this point. He gets his mitten on and it goes in.
Looking him eye to eye. Here comes Rhoades. It is Mike Rhoades inside the line. He throws it up, blocked by Gabriel. Tipped to the basket. Laid up and in. Does it count? Yes, it does. Yes. Oh, baby.
Remarkable moment in Division III history. Obviously, Hot Dog Frank. We talk about the Hot Dog Frank, the statue.
What a story.
Did he pass? Now I just want to verify this for the podcast. Did he pass away the night of the national championship?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did.
Man.
Remember Paul Harvey? Do you ever hear that?
Yep,
I heard
Paul Harvey do it. Yeah, he does a thing on Hot Dog Frank being on the backboard that night. He was, for folks that don't know, he was a Greek immigrant who had a hot dog stand in Annville, and he used to give the kids hot dogs and probably gave them some money for somebody to get a bus home. And he did that for every student, every student. They even have a night at the end of the season. My first year, I was wondering why the crowd was so big. They give away a hot dog and a soda the last home game. And
it
worked. And then after that, we couldn't get people in. But yeah, Hot Dog Frank was a special guy. So those stories are neat.
We talk about act of God. Act of God is when it seems a little too coincidental that he passes away, and he's been biggest Lebanon Valley guy there was, and him not being able to see the national championship, like he said, him being on the backboard that night really sprung them to be able to do it. But that's in the history books. And Coach, I know you're asked this a bunch of times. Your Lebanon Valley coaching days were probably the best, right? You look back at them as the most incredible days of your coaching career, and you were everywhere.
Well, we've talked, we've broken bread, so you know me, and people have asked me everywhere, what they always ask you, what's your biggest moments? And I know many people think of Kansas and think of them, but how many people ever get to win a national championship? And I say that because not only were the kids special, it was a special time in our life. My wife had our first baby a couple days after that championship game. She had to get permission to go to Buffalo. So, wow. I mean, there was all kinds of things going on that were just like you said. He does look over you, but you've said it, and I've said it to you many times. I'm still a big believer that you put effort and work and hard work into it, and good things happen to good people.
Well, yeah, I mean, the I was looking up some of the stuff at Bucknell, and I was reading about Jay Wright, and he credits you, Coach, as his mentor. That has to make you feel great.
Jay, guys, was I don't even know if Jordan knows this, but Jay was a high school senior, was being recruited by us. I was a sophomore, and I was one of our captains, and we had Jay visit the campus. I guess I was a junior. And he came and he visited campus, and whoever he was with, we ended up meeting up. I really liked him. I say kid, he was a kid from Council Rock. I really liked him. And we ended up getting him. So then as a senior captain, he was on the team, and we were good friends, real competitor. He cheated on the pickup scores, but I had to correct him as a senior. So I had to put him in his place a few times as a senior. But we became great friends. So then fast forward, guys, without making a big deal of it. But when I went out to work. I was done at Bucknell. I thought I was done with athletics. I had been picked up to go play baseball, possibly in A-ball. And I just thought my career as far as athletics was over. I took a job out in Ohio. I ended up helping a high school guy. I loved it, guys. I never thought of coaching in my life. I didn't come up with a family of coaching. I came back to Bucknell for graduate school. Well, now I come back and Jay has his senior year and he's a captain. Well, guys, Jay got put on the bench as a senior captain after being a starter. You mentioned Zeber. And a guy by the name of Jay Andrews was a heck of a player and a 4-year all-league and all. He's the guy that took Jay's spot. So you can imagine the year that we went through together with Jay not starting, and he came off the bench. I think the reason he's such a great coach is he had empathy. He went through that. He wasn't that star. I think so many times when guys were great players, they don't understand what kids go through because you were a great player and because you could do that all. He always cared about every one of his kids. He always cared about the players. He went through that. And not only was a great coach, but he's obviously incredibly recruiter. He knows the game. He had a style that they played. So to this day, I mean, we talk all the time. We're great friends. He ended up going he followed everything I did as far as he went into development and all. I'd like to get a percent of his bank account, but other than that, just a wonderful person. And nobody's saying anything about Jay Wright around me. He's just a special guy.
Yeah, definitely a special guy. And then you guys get to the NCAA tournament, Bucknell versus Kansas. Again, David versus Goliath. I remember that night. I was at an NCAA tournament game that night with my dad, and I remember the score coming up on the scoreboard. It was just a hush came across how special it was to be in the NCAA tournament and just everything that goes into it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what it meant to you personally and to the kids that were involved?
Well, Paul, I really mean is I appreciate you doing the homework on this because you're asking me some things that I've thought about a long time, and I'm so glad to express, and they're different than what a lot of people ask. And I would just say that I have hoped and prayed that everybody that ever coached gets a chance to go to the NCAA tournament and experience that experience of what that's like and the way they treat you and the way the people are. And it's just magnificent. I couldn't ask for anything more. So I'm glad I got to experience that. I think I'll go back to what people don't realize, though, about that is that team, we had beaten Pitt at Pitt. We beat Syracuse with McNamara at Syracuse. We'd beaten Xavier, St. Joe's. That team was talented. It wasn't like the Sisters of the Poor going in there and knocking somebody off. So Kansas knew who we were. Do you think you're going to be in that moment? No. I mean, you go up and what we were talking before, you prepare and do everything you can going in. So going in, you think you have a shot. To give you this scenario is we get to halftime, you prepare like you're preparing for the league championship. You get to halftime and all of a sudden you're telling your kids, see guys, I told you, we can play with these cats. We've been around this. And now the game stays, it's tight. We're actually up. We commit a dumb foul, actually intentional foul. We're up. And so now the thing starts to play out. Again, you're prepared. You know what you have to do at the end, going back to that, and you do it. But at the time that you're doing it, much like the championship in Buffalo, all you're trying to do is win the next possession and put the right kids on the floor and get the right shots and make your free throws and all change up defenses to keep them off balance. And that's something we always did. We were man and match. So we did the right things going in. It would have been great to have another day to prepare because that was the hard thing is I thought I did a better job than next year. But after you win a game like that, there's so much backslapping and there's so much media and everything that the guys that are really good at it have been there before. Jay would be the first one to tell you first time we went to the tournament in Detroit. You have to get prepared for that because it's an onslaught. Just a fabulous bunch. But again, it starts with your kids being good players.
What a special team that was back then. That was unheard of,
Yeah,
And
keep in mind, Kansas was the preseason #1 that year.
Right.
We talk about preparation and attention to detail, and I'm going to run the clip here. When there's 10.5 seconds left on the clock, McNaughton, the point guard finds McNaughton and how he spun to seal his man to get position to attempt a hook shot to bank instead of getting the ball above the block. Now all of a sudden he's faced with a more challenging shot. I just break the game down in Coach Flannery's mind. He prepares his kids to be able to be faced in adverse situations to, in a split second, make a decision. Everybody saw them rush the court, but let's break it down. 10.5 seconds, point guard crosses the court. McNaughton acts like he's going block to block, and he spins and seals. Fundamental basketball, right? The same thing, nothing special. Fundamentally seals his guy. Great entry pass into the post. And he knew exactly in his head, probably done it 10,000, 20,000 times at practice. Turn, hook, bank, in. He runs down the court. Let's go get the stop.
63-62 Kansas. Can Bucknell pull the upset? 15 seconds left in Oklahoma City. Down low, jump shot, got it! McNaughton! The inbound, the long pass, the turnaround, Simeon, no! And Bucknell has pulled the upset. (64-63). The NCAA tournament. This is what dreams are made of for basketball.
That, to me, is coaching at its best.
Well, it's a great scenario, Jordan. You obviously looked at this, and I'll give you one caveat to that, which we haven't talked about, but I know you believe in. You said about your team this year. The kid that made the entry pass, Chris Neese was a senior captain, and he was probably the only senior in that group that was on the floor at that time. And he's a guy that had been through the wars a number of times. People don't give him enough credit. He hit a bunch of big shots too, but he's the guy that made the entry pass. We went 4 out and 1 in, and nowadays they go for the 3 ball so much you don't really use the big guy anymore. And at that time, we still wanted to play a little smash mouth and wanted to go at him and think that's still a high percentage shot. So yeah, kids got to make the plays.
Kansas had the final chance. Wayne Simeon missed the 15-footer at the buzzer. They try to do the Christian Leitner pass.
Yeah.
Kid has a decent look. He gets square to the basket. Wasn't meant to be. Look at the balance here. I have the stat sheet right here. Bucknell's big scorers in game. Kevin Betancourt, 19 points. Charles Lee, 15. McNaughton, 14. Look at how balanced that stat sheet is. Now, you're never going to get it picture perfect, but we're talking 3 guys in double digits. You could just tell the team basketball that he played. It's remarkable, Coach. It really is. It's truly remarkable. This is exactly why he's my role model, not because he's that has that grit inside him and that blue collar attitude and that fierce competitive nature built in him. And Coach Rhoades has the same type of vibe, and that kind of aligns with me. And honest to God, it's contagious at that point, Coach. So I commend you.
I appreciate it, Jordan. You're too kind and you embarrass me, but I'm also proud that you say those things and that you were a kid, was a camper when I was there, and we've had great talks. And having Paul and Brian want me to come on here and talk a little bit, I'm very proud. There's nothing I shy away from in my career and the path I took. I'm very proud of, and I feel like, we had hiccups, and I feel like we've done it the right way and the best you can, and that's all you can do is the best you can.
I appreciate that, Coach. Let's put the Hall of Fame coach on the Game Time Athletics fastest question, right? Ready, Coach? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Right off the dome. What's one pre-game ritual that you've never skipped?
I shower right before every game. I used to shower to try to just calm down a little bit. And when I did go to church, I never asked for a win. I just asked to be healthy and don't carry me off the court.
One word to describe the 1994 Lebanon Valley National Championship team.
It's not corny. They were a brotherhood, guys. I think probably if somebody got in a fight on campus and they heard about it, the entire team would be coming from different dorms to help. They were a brotherhood. Still are a brotherhood.
Who wins in a game of horse? 1980 Pat Flannery or a Lebanon Valley Mike Rhoades?
I think Mike might get me with the E at the end, but I'd be in it. But he might get me at the E at the end. He might get the horse.
Most clutch player you've ever coached?
I tell you, the guy that was one of the most clutch players I ever had was Kevin Betancourt. He had more. This was a kid that went to Notre Dame as a young Irish Catholic kid from Boston as a freshman, and I started him, and he went 1 for 15, and he ended up winning 2 league championships. So that tells you a lot about what kind of nuggies that kid had.
100%. Favorite gym or arena you coached in?
It would have to be, Paul mentioned, it'd have to be either Lynch Gym or Davis Gym. They were both just bandboxes. And I've been to the Pit in Albuquerque. I've been to Dallas. I've been to Indiana. I took my kids everywhere, but those places are pretty cool. I love going there.
Now, the Philly guy me has to ask.
The Palestra. All right.
Yeah.
All right. You might get me there. You know, Brian, we used to play our league championship there when I was a player.
Mike Rhoades was the captain at Lebanon Valley. Wasn't the biggest guy on the floor, but he controlled the game like a coach on the court, right? What was the basketball mind that he brought that really separated him?
Well, he the skill level, guys, he grew up with the ball in his hand, but he also, for anybody that knew, Mike's mom and dad, Mike was disciplined from the day he arrived. He had discipline to do the right things, to work out the right way, eat the right way, and to go to school and all that. So I think what happened was the combination of playing for his uncle Mickey, who was a heck of a coach. He knew the game coming in. And I think there's times where he has said at times like, Coach, I tell him he knew a lot coming in. He said, Coach, it was good that we were together and I learned a few more things. And some of the things that I feel good about helping him with was managing the game even from the point without having to score. And he was unbelievable. He doesn't get credit defensively. When he wanted to get up on people, he could defensively. So I think what he became, what I'm proud of, I think he became just an all-around phenomenal player, and that's why he was National Player of the Year.
100%. Now we talk about Charles Lee,
yeah,
climbing the NBA coaching ranks. Did you see those leadership qualities as a player with you?
So, guys, I'm going to tell you something, and if Charles sees it and he reads it, he'll concur 100% with you. If you have time, I'll tell you a real quick story.
Please do.
Charles Lee came to us from Queen Orchard high school down in the Maryland area, and he was big, he was a little heavy, and he came to us, and he was a talented kid. We saw him, we knew he was talented, but there was nights where he would go for 20, and there was nights that the coach would take him out. He came up to our place, and from the freshman year, guys, from the minute he got there, you knew he was a good player. Like, he could play, but there was so much more in him. So we go to California, and he is on the all-tournament team. We're out of Cal at a tournament. We come back, and guys, I get the grades from the kids, and we have 4 D. He has 4 Ds and an F. That was what his grades were at Bucknell. I knew I would have him another semester, and there was no way he was going to survive at Bucknell with those grades. So I called him in, and I sat him second semester. Now, can you imagine doing that this day and age? They would have been out of here so fast. I said his parents were mad at me, and here's why. You said, what do I think when you asked me this question about Charles Lee? Charles Lee came to every practice, guys. He wasn't allowed to play. I wouldn't let him play, even though he was allowed to as a second semester. He wasn't out of it by NCAA standards. It's just that I knew I was going to use him for a semester and he was going to be gone, and I wanted him for 4 years. So he's there every practice. He comes back the next year, and he's hungry, and it starts to take off. Last 3 semesters, I think, of his time at Bucknell, he was on the dean's list, guys. People don't realize where that where he came from and what you thought about him. Plus, he was a warrior. He was always a player, one of the most competitive guys. So then he graduates from there, 2-time All-League. I think he was MVP a year or two, and he goes overseas and plays. But because of what he did academically, he comes back and he goes on Wall Street for a couple years. He's making tons of money because he's a sharp kid. He's on Wall Street. Calls me one day again. I don't know, think good things happen at the Shore. He calls me to the Shore and starts talking about coaching. Charles, why do you want to leave Goldman Sachs or wherever he was with get into coaching? You're going to kill it. And it's something that he just wanted so badly. And then it took off. He ended up, one place, another. And then he had an opportunity to go with Boot out in Milwaukee because of some of his contacts, and he had played professionally overseas. And then, once those guys got a hold of him, he's a guy, guys, that he could sit in with the president of the team and his wife and their family, and he would take over the room in a very respectful manager, well spoken. He also, though, could go into the locker room and talk the language with any player that's around. He has that ability. He can be one of the guys, but he also has to be that professional that's running the organization. Would I think at this young age he'd already be a head coach? Well, once they won in Boston, they won in Milwaukee. Once you get that rep, and he has that rep, because I know a lot of NBA guys, they said, hey, it's just a matter of time. So, these guys root for him. He's easy to root for at Charlotte. I just saw that he hired Kyle Neptune, who used to be the coach at Villanova, and he hired them. And that's what this business does, guys. Guys look out for each other. Obviously, that's one of Jay's guys, and Charles, one of our guys. And so now Kyle's down there with Charles. So that's pretty neat.
When it comes to fresh quality turkey, Cuck's Turkey Farm has been a family tradition for over 85 years. From whole turkeys and turkey products to deli meats and specialty items, you can trust Cuck's for delicious farm-raised turkey that's always fresh. Whether it's for your holiday feast or everyday meals, Cuck's has you covered. Cuck's Turkey Farm, where quality and tradition meet.
Looking for insurance that fits your life and budget? Jeremy Baczynski with State Farm is here to help. From auto and home to life and business insurance, Jeremy creates a personalized coverage plan designed around your needs. Get a quote today at ilovethefarm.com or call us at 570-622-5684.
We talk about the importance of being able to get to the next level. Coach Flannery, after his Bucknell run, retires as a coach from Bucknell, and he finds himself as the general manager of Penn State University. I know we don't have all that much time, but if you could just summarize a little bit on what the NIL is today.
Yeah, well, it's name, image, and likeness. And guys, where it started was with kids that were in school, that they could go out and make some more money than their scholarship or the travel money that they used to get. And it was supposed to be part of, you can go to an insurance company or something and they could pay you $2,000 and you could do a commercial. Well, what's changed is this has now become, it's really people giving money to the school for their kids to play. So there's a lot of individuals that are paying to go. All that is just a backlog to this. What I worry about, guys, I worry about Mike and my friends that I know. Mike was at Randolph-Macon. I have a kid that coached at Amherst, went to Johns Hopkins. Now he's at Bucknell. His next step is probably somewhere like where Mike and I just worry because, guys, again, I'm not standing on a pedestal, but I've been to my kids' weddings in England, in Nova Scotia. The babies that are born, I just went on vacation with a couple of my former players. A couple more just played in the tournament. They were special relationships. And what I worry about is not the game. The game is going to be fine. What people don't realize is as they're paying these guys and as they're moving around, and there's reasons for them to move around. Some of them are the breadwinners for their families. I mean, it's the first time their family's making the kind of money that they're making. So imagine the pressure on some of these players that are making that kind of money. But the part that I'm talking about as a coach, and you have a coach on here, a former coach that's talking to you, where I am worried about it is the relationship with your players. It's so much transaction in many cases. They get a salary, they get a contract, they're making X amount of dollars, and that's what drives them. So taking them to dinner or getting to know their family, most of the time when you're getting another family, they're probably in there trying to renegotiate the contract. So it's transactional. Again, I can't say a blanket. Maybe there's some guys doing it a certain way. But when hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars get involved in it with a family, they're coming in and they're negotiating those contracts. And it just doesn't feel the same sometimes.
That is 100%. Coming from the general manager himself, that should really indicate it is private funding for the majority of these schools. They develop an athlete out there, someone with a bigger purse. If you look at the best comparison I can really kind of lean on is Major League Baseball. The Yankees are the richest. They can literally.
I just saw that. Yeah.
The Yankees are the richest franchise. They can go buy whatever they want. They want this shortstop. We're just going to fork out the bread to be able to get it. This has been an incredible episode of the Game Time Athletics podcast with Coach Flannery on. For all those watching, nothing is coincidental that he overcame all the adversity to win. And everybody could say Coach Flannery got lucky. He got so lucky to win the national championship in Division III. He got lucky when he beat Kansas out at Bucknell. You know, luck favors hard workers. You make your own luck, right? You starve your distractions, you feed your focus, you stay ready, you sleep well, you build skills, you lean on the edges of your comfort zone, you stay resilient, you know, with effort, all commit, no quit. Now go make your own luck, guys, right? The harder you work, the luckier you get. So and that's what Coach Flannery did. He worked his tail off, and it's been an honor to have him on.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me. And obviously, guys, we talked about all the wonderful things. You know, we could sit here and also talk about, you know, we lost 3 league championships before we broke through and beat Holy Cross. And, you know, those things are all part of this journey, too. I mean, I had health issues and I ended up getting out of it. I was losing the fight at home. So these are things that these coaches and all go through. It's not just coaches, it's our parents and everything that we do to all the things you just said, Jordan. I agree with. Just remember that tough times, that's what builds character. And that's when you stand up. So don't think ever think you're alone, guys, in any of this, that somebody else has the world by the tail. We all go through it, and how you come out of it is determined. So it's great meeting you and Brian, you and Paul. Jordan, I'll see you again, and
100%.
I really do appreciate it, and I'm happy for my time.
Coach, thank you so much, and like your story's truly inspiring. I love the underdog story, and thanks for joining us.
Fine. It's been a great conversation. On behalf of Jordan, on behalf of Paul, I want to thank you, Coach Flannery, for joining and for teaching everybody who's watching this a lesson. Whenever they talk about these underdog stories, it's Cinderella, it's a fairy tale. No, it's a bunch of guys from coal country who work their... All right, so I'm going to close out with one last question for you here, Coach. Answers behind me, answers behind Paul, answers behind Jordan. What time is it?
Game time!
Couldn't have said it better.
Lebanon Valley College is the NCAA Division III National Basketball Champion.